For where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, I am there among them.
Remember God's powerful promise to be with us in the midst of our problems. I'd like us to look at Matthew 18, and that was the text Bill read from the margin. For now, let's focus on the scripture. What stuck out to you from that? Any surprises listening to Matthew 18 tonight? Somebody say, I didn't know that was there, or I never read it that way, under the banner called Rule of Christ. Anything grab you in Matthew 18 tonight in the left-hand column? Yes, sir. Yeah. Yeah. Say more about how did the harshness strike you in reading this?
Just how hard it would be to
Wow.
take
Yeah?
some sort of physicality that has to happen.
Yeah.
Hardness of doing things.
Right. And when you said it has to happen, you're saying for good, right? I mean, for the good of this process. It has to happen. Wow. Wow. Did you get that, folks? Let's stay with that one. Yeah. It's really hard to examine yourself honestly. Thank you for, a woman came to me the other day. We were working on getting this ready in another congregation. She said, I've got problems with point 1. She said, I'm stuck at the first point about cutting my foot off. You know, she said, I don't know where I'm going from there or how I'm going to get there. But can we work with this point a little, stay with this point? What does cutting your hand or foot off have to do with peace and reconciliation and the well-being of the congregation? Yeah. Yeah. I feel so strongly about this. Let it go, cut it off. I don't like Adam. I never did like Adam. You know, I mean, there's where we started, but can you cut that off? Somebody else, like, what does it do with cut off your hand or your foot or poke out your eye? Better to go with one eye into the kingdom of heaven than have 2 eyes and go off the cliff, go off the end. Let's stay with this one. I think we might have started with the hardest point.
Well, it's the discomfort that comes along with that.
Yeah.
Now I gotta deal with something that I'm used to.
Yeah. I'm going to have to go with one hand. I'm going to come Sunday morning and the youth minister is going to be right there and he's just going on like nothing happened. He seems to be all right. And I got to come to church. I'm going to come to church and go to communion and stay in it without my hand. With the sacrifice. What will you sacrifice? See, this was what turned me upside down on this. I came to the rule of Christ and said, yeah, I know Matthew 18. Well, I thought I did, but I started in the middle. It's easy if you skip this part. Don't read that part about it. Go to point 3. Call somebody to come with you. See, it'd be nice to start with point 3. Go get a friend and say, come with me, let's get this guy. But what is it? Go into a closet and shut the door and be alone with God. A while. And the word that comes out says, are you ready to cut off your foot? Or not? See, or not. You gotta come out of the closet with an answer to that question. I was with a small church group that was working on this, and I sat beside a fellow. He'd been in the church a long time, and he says, I got a big problem with what's happening here, but I decided I just have to live with it. I think he did this. He shared it so honestly with me. He said, this is something, and he said, it's just, I'm not going to say a word. And he didn't say a word. And I think he might have cut off his foot. And he was there every Sunday. He's carrying baked potatoes to the potato bar. And, you know, he's right there. But I think maybe he cut off his foot. I was so touched by that. He just said it in a few words. He said, I got a problem in this church, but I decided not to say anything. And I think he meant it. And he didn't put poison in the punch. Yeah. Yes. That's right. Exactly. Thank you. Yeah. See, this is why I said, or not. Not everybody's going to cut their foot off. You know, no, that's not what God wanted. I think we got to talk with God. And God says, you are going to be Jeremiah. You are going to be Miriam. You got to come out of this closet and you got to stand and speak. So I want to be careful on this. I had done a shortcut. I said I was going to go to step 3 and skip this over and call somebody and say, let's go talk to this person. But they said, no, that's not where you start. You have to go into a closet alone and shut the door. That beautiful reading that we have on Ash Wednesday every year. Yes. See, this is the point. The reason we're in the closet alone talking with God said, God told me, when I talked with God, I thought, I wasn't right. Or the sister said, God said, go out and say it. Go out and say it. Don't cut it off. So this is what's the hard part. I think you're right. Step 1's the hard part. Don't go nailing this other person. Start with God and say, now, and I don't know how long that's going to take. I wonder if that would take 15 minutes, or I wonder if it would take 15 weeks, or I wonder if it would take 15 months to make that decision to say, am I going to speak out on this, or am I going to be quiet and leave it behind? Leave it behind. Really leave it behind, and don't drag it in and throw it around when other stuff is going on. It has nothing to do with it. You see, these are the 2 points right here. Was I wrong? You know what? I got a problem with Adam, and that should not disqualify him as our youth minister. That's not right. And I didn't think about it. I thought I was right, but something God said, or something one of God's people said to me, I had a different idea. And I'm going to let it go. Or, and that might be the cutting off, or say there is something wrong here. There's something not right here. and I need to speak. But how? See, now we're going to get to that point. We're getting to that point. But I think, thank you. The first part is, and that came up in another meeting I had, she said, wow, are we going to start with that? And I said, yep, that's the first part before we get to step 2 and 3. I go back to Matthew 18. I go back to Matthew 5, 6, and 7, and that's where you get about the part about prayer. And it says, don't stand on the street corner and wave a flag. But it says, go into your closet and close the door, and God who sees in secret will reward you. And what will the reward be? Well, seek and you shall find, ask and it shall be given, knock and the door shall be opened. You'll get an idea. But that idea of going alone with God, start there. And so I think it's right. We should be disturbed by that and say, okay, Matthew 18 has this in it too. Something else, any other twist or surprise you got hearing Matthew 18 tonight under the banner Rule of Christ? Any other wrinkle or surprise here? Yeah. See? See, here we're talking about typical and atypical. She didn't go to Adam. And so we chuckled at the typical. We tremble at the atypical. We get real quiet about going in the closet and asking God, tell me, God, what's what here? About myself. See, that's the thing. I'd like to look at Adam. I'd like to look at the staff parish chairperson. I'd like to look at our pastor. But it said, no, look at yourself. Look at yourself. And then come out. And so here, I like these words. And typical and atypical. Is the church typical or is the church atypical? Am I typical with this new way of just trashing? That's what sells. That's what's in vogue. Just tell them what you think. And don't mince your words. Use any words you want to tell them what you think. Oh, no. Be quiet and go in the closet and shut the door. Wow, that's atypical. What if there's something wrong with me? Something wrong with me. And that doesn't mean that the issue with the youth minister, there's something wrong with me. But we also got to deal with our youth minister and some issues there, maybe. So don't, see, it's not, you can walk with one foot. That's no, I mean, I got to be careful saying that because the journey's not over. But I might have to sacrifice something, but then I might have to stand up and say something. And be part of a conversation. And somebody raised this earlier. It says a crucial conversation that's not being held, or a crucial conversation that is not being held well. We're not getting to it. We're getting around it. So the crucial conversation, and I might have to go into that crucial conversation with one foot. I tremble to say that. I mean, Lord, I mean, what do I need to confess and what do I need to repent and what do I need to lay down? And the word was, what do I need to sacrifice? What can I sacrifice for the glory of God and for the well-being, for the beauty of the ministry and the ministry, the mission. The bottom line here is the mission of the church. Any other place where you got jerked to surprise in Matthew 18? Yeah. Yeah. We're part of the church. We are the church. And so here I've got this issue here, and so now we're going to go and ask one other person, staff parish chair or somebody or another friend, would you come and meet with the two of us? and talk this out. But then finally it goes to the church. That scares me. I mean, that's staff parish, that's the superintendent, that's the Mennonite Peace Center, that's the arbitration side. There are issues that require this. And we end up, because we are the church, and so we go to the church if these other steps fail. Yes?
In the atypical, you have to confront it.
Yes.
You can't just pretend to do
Yep.
or just say, well, I mean, either
Yeah. Yeah.
ignore or get the confrontation.
Confront the issue. Yep. Finally, we have to have the talk. Finally, we have to have the talk. We tried to put it off. We tried to sidestep. We tried to go around it. Finally, we have to have the talk. And Matthew 18 says, how are we going to get to the talk? And we get to the talk by talking with God, talking with the other, talking with a third person, talking with the church. We have to have the talk. Yes. Do you see the bottom line? Where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, there I am in the midst of them. We're not abandoned. It's impossible for me to do this. It's impossible for us to, oh yeah, we do Matthew 18. Careful. Careful. We need a lot of help, a lot of grace, a lot of spirit to do this. To have these talks. And I might be, and we started with cutting off a hand or a foot. I want to, there's a scale. Like there are some things that are kind of up in the 1, 2, and 3 category that we got to deal with. And then there are some things in the 7, 8, and 9 category. So we got to remember that they're all along the spectrum. But they're all important. They all matter. Sally said, I wasn't taken seriously. For her, it was serious. It was serious. Her relationship with Adam, the youth minister, was serious. And she said, I wasn't taken seriously. Well, who's responsible for that? But, so we make a judgment. Oh, that's Sally's like up here in the 1, 2, 3. But see, be careful how you judge the seriousness of the matter. To me and to you, how serious is this? Do you see how we get pushed back to listening? Who's asking the question? Who's saying, what do you think? Or to say to Vicky's mother, say, I noticed you didn't say anything. What are you thinking? Who's asking and who's listening? Isn't it amazing how much listening has to do with this? When I think of the rule of Christ, I think about, going and doing and talking. But look at it again and mark all the places in Matthew 18 where careful listening is required. Go down that list and circle or mark. Boy, I hope somebody's listening here. Look at that just for a little bit and see where you would mark listening on that left-hand column. Also look at the front page of the other document, Rule of Christ, and on that one too, or you might hold them side by side and mark down where listening is required. How essential is listening to the enterprise? How often does it come up? You say every part? Wow. Okay. You could mark it on every part. Are you listening? Can you hear? Yeah. Or is anybody listening? Anybody there?
That one mouth that you
Yeah, that's right. Takes a lot of practice, doesn't it?
No, when we talk about listening, being helped, at least for myself, to listen to what you were saying about this because we started with Sally's story.
Yeah.
So we didn't go into ourselves and say, okay, what is our situation? We have a situation here that doesn't affect us personally. It's a story.
Yeah.
But it gets us to listen better.
Yeah.
To be able to
Yeah.
be more open to hearing what you're saying.
Good.
Yes.
Yeah. Listening to someone else's story.
Yeah.
Right.
And not so much focusing on
Yeah.
and help us to listen.
It opens a door, doesn't it? Or an invitation. And then the next part was and the word was, it's so hard to examine ourselves. That is to listen to God or to listen to ourselves, that next part of, okay, now we heard Sally's story. And then we go like my story and New Lennox's story. And how do we walk in and listen? I'd like to, I want to stick to the 8 o'clock closing, and we've got 20 minutes yet, but can we just stand in your place and just stand up a little bit? It'd be nice not to leave the room unless you really have to, but stay in your place, but just stand up and spin around, and then we're going to run to the end. Yeah, really, you got a new knee.
You do?
No, not yet, but I might sometime, yeah. Let's just take a couple minutes and then sit down again. Now, the practice of the rule of Christ, trying to learn it and say, do we know what the rule of Christ is? And then how would we practice it in a place called New Lenox United Methodist Church? And here's an idea. It's on page 11 in the manual. Page 11. Yep. A sample complaint procedure. Somebody heard something. Sally has an issue. Here's how we could work this. And notice it says Staff Parish Relations Committee. The discipline charges staff parish, I say, to be the stewards of the relationships. Relationship between staff and congregation, relationship between staff and staff, relationship between congregation member and congregation. Staff parish is at the point. And so it says how staff parish might be the point of setting up a procedure. But let me go through this quickly. Listen to what it might look like to say, what if we took this seriously? Rather than just say, well, that was nice to read Matthew 18, but what if we really were saying, New Lenox is a Matthew 18 church. And here's how it might look. When you are approached, encourage the person. Yeah, when you are approached, somebody came to you Encourage the person to take time to discern God's will in the situation and then go directly to the party involved in order to work it out. You are a Matthew 18 ambassador. Ask them to get back to you after they have had the meeting and say, I'll be checking back with you in a couple of days to see how it went. Pray with them and follow it up with a note. Now, you've gotten involved here. This is kind of like another track running beside everything, but somebody came to you and said, I got problems, like Sally came to you, and then you said, would you think of going to Adam, and I'm going to call you in 2 days. And then when Sally went home, then you wrote her a note right away. And you prayed for her. You don't need to tell her. I mean, go in the closet and close the door and pray. And God, who sees in secret, will reward you in secret. If the conflict is not resolved after the face-to-face meeting, then it is appropriate to deal with the concern in Staff Parish. Ask the person to write a one-page summary of the concern. Here's the person who's got a problem. And so you say, can you put it in writing with your name on it? And can you make it 1 page or less, preferably less, and then hand it to Kate. Read through the summary silently. Listen, this comes back to listening at every point. Read it silently. Encourage members to read responsively. Okay, now, I'm sorry. This is Staff Parish. Staff Parish has the 1-page summary. I'm sorry, I jumped. I went down to number 4. Contact Staff Parish chairperson and the pastor and request that the concern be put on the agenda of the next meeting. Staff Parish chairperson will make copies of the 1-page summary available at the meeting. Read through the summary silently. Encourage members to read responsively, not reactively. Look at that line. Read responsively. Now, when you look at the bulletin on Sunday and it says responsive reading, then read. That's one way of reading responsively. But here says another way of reading responsively rather than reactively. How would you talk about the difference? What's the difference between reading responsively and reactively? What would you say is the difference? Yeah. 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 You put those aside. The word you used was discern, and discern has to do with listening. You read with a listening heart rather than a fighting heart or a reactive heart. I'm going to pour my stuff in here and load this up. But reading discerningly. Allow 5 minutes for personal reflection. And I was thinking about quiet times in meetings, about a time where in a meeting we should just be quiet. We don't need to talk the whole time. And I wonder if there's a time where we say, let's just be quiet for a little bit. And you can pray, or we'll pray. But I was wondering about quiet times in our meetings. Allow 5 minutes. That'd be a long time. I got a babysitter. We got to get home. Encourage members to write down ideas and listen to God's direction. There it is again. Listen to God's direction. Number 7, practice mutual invitation for the first round of the discussion. Have you experienced mutual invitation? It's a special word, and it talks about it at the bottom of the page, developed by Eric Law. It says everybody should be invited to talk. They came to the meeting, they've been elected to be here, or they volunteered to be here. We'd like to hear from everybody. Mutual invitation is we're going to start over here, and we're going to ask this person, do you want to speak? And that person has the floor, and no one else can talk. And no one else says, wait, what? You speak, and then when that person's done, then the stick, sometimes you pass the stick. And then the stick goes to the next person. Now the next person said, I don't want to say anything. That's okay. But it was your turn. Then you take the stick and pass to the next one. And I confess I've not done it. And I wonder if I've left people out sometimes. Matthew?
When I've seen mutual invitation of the person when they finish, they pick the next one.
Oh, it doesn't go around.
They say, would you like to speak next?
Yes.